This program in this continuing series of Lexington Remembers is going to focus on organizations in town which have a military history or current orientation. And we're going to be talking with three groups. We're going to be talking with people representing, or a person anyway, representing some of the current veterans organizations in town. We're going to be talking with a couple of members of the Lexington Minutemen Company. We're going to be talking with a representative of the DAR. It's interesting the number of organizations that we have in town about which most of us in the community know very little, and we thought it was an important segment of our community life to get on film, to air, and also to build up as a part of the town's archives for people who are interested in exploring Lexington's past and present. And talking about, we're going to start with the past here, and talk with a couple of members of the Lexington Minutemen Company. My son and I, in fact, are also members, but I'm going to talk with these two gentlemen as though I weren't, and as though I knew nothing about it, even to the point of asking them to introduce themselves and to tell our audience what role they play in the company. I noticed that they wear very different uniforms, so it must mean that one is a big shot in the company and one isn't. Why don't you start us off, and then we'll...
I'm Bill Daley. I'm been with the Lexington Minutemen for about 8 years now. I am wearing not necessarily what one would call a big shot uniform. This is a dress uniform, which we wear in parades and when we do ceremonial events in Boston or in other communities, or when we do parades. The uniform was not worn by the Lexington Minutemen. What Bill Poole here wears was a traditional outfit of 1775. But we use this so we look good when we're marching down the street and when we're doing ceremonial events.
And you have all kinds of stuff on your shoulder there.
I'm the first lieutenant of the Lexington Minutemen.
Okay, and that means you're in charge of what, besides me?
Well, I'm in charge of. Actually, I take over the company when the captain's not there. Other than that, I do various committee things and what have you within the company. But my responsibilities are really under the captain, right under the captain.
And in addition to the epaulette, you have something on your hat there. Maybe you could turn your head so.
Yeah, the white ribbon. If you see that on a hat, that basically signifies an officer in the company.
Okay. And you look like a ragamuffin.
Well, not quite a ragamuffin. I'm dressed in what a traditional farmer or a civilian in town would have worn in 1775, and what they would have worn to the battlefield. If you look at the Doolittle prints and so forth, the depictions of the battle, this is typically what you would see them wearing. They did not have uniforms. They had their own civilian clothing and would not have been able to adopt uniforms until they went to the Army under George Washington later on, and they would have worn what Billy is wearing right now, which is a Revolutionary War Continental Army uniform. This civilian clothes, just what you would have worn every day if you were going into town or going down to the common and muster as they did on that day.
And tell me, on the dress uniform and on the colonial dress, when the militia from various towns, probably not too many Lexington people because we were fairly close, but militia from farther away, from Connecticut, New Hampshire, and so on, settled in Cambridge after April 19th, 1775. They would have been dressed the way you are, right, Bill?
Yeah, they were a pretty polyglot lot. A variety of uniforms, a variety of clothing and so forth. Some were from military units, perhaps from Rhode Island or Connecticut, who had more uniform clothing. Most of the militia, however, wore just the clothes that they would have had, that they wore every day. So when Washington came to Cambridge, he found an army that certainly didn't look a great deal like an army, and was probably pretty disappointed in what he saw with regard to the style of clothing and how the men were dressed and how they appeared and how they behaved. It took quite some time to weld this polyglot, mixed up group of individuals into an army. And that wouldn't have happened until Valley Forge in 76 and 77 when Baron von Steuben came and actually taught the Americans how to move, maneuver, and use their weapons in the established European manner so that they could stand up to the British as they did at the Battle of Monmouth, bayonet for bayonet. Before that, they were a pretty rough lot, and it took Washington quite some time to bang them into a coherent lot that could stand up to the British.
And that was demonstrated painfully in the battles of New York after the British left Boston, and consequently General Washington left Boston. Now your uniform really is that an exact replica of what the Continental Forces?
Well, it's similar to what actually Washington wore, but it's not exactly. The blue and the buff and was to be similar to what they wore. But the Continental Army, it's, again, parts of them wore a uniform similar to this, but not exactly like this.
This is based more or less on what Washington's honor guard would have worn, or if they were called then life guard. They would have worn a red vest instead of the buff vest that we wear. The uniform has kind of a history to it during the bicentennial, or the centennial, I should say, in 1875 when President Grant came here and so forth. Someone obviously in his administration looked at what they were going to wear on the common and said that doesn't look very revolutionary to us, and they actually designed a uniform that the Lexington Minutemen have worn ever since. It has evolved through time and so forth. This is as close, fairly close to what a Continental Army soldier would have worn, a member of Washington's honor guard or life guard. And some of the accoutrements and so forth that we wear on it are not perhaps Revolutionary War, but this is has a lot of characteristics.
A lot of similarity to.
Yep.
For the last 100 years, we've worn this type of uniform.
Yeah.
Which
Now, there are Minuteman companies in Concord, Billerica, Acton, Menotomy, Arlington, number of towns around here. They all dress the way you are? Their uniforms all look like?
I don't believe they have what we call a ceremonial or a dress outfit, that they wear pretty much what Bill has here. They wear their colonial outfits. They are more, maybe more reenactment. They don't do a lot of the ceremonial stuff that we do, so we look better in the, when it comes down to doing ceremonial things.
You will find a couple of units that tend to wear uniform clothing. It may not be a Continental Army, they may have the same color coat and so forth. Actually what happened is that when Washington took command, he wanted to be somewhat more uniform, so each town would make for their soldiers what was called a blanket coat, and it would have so that the men tended to wear the same color coat and so forth, until eventually they would adopt a Continental Army uniform. So if you see Lincoln and Acton and some of the other companies, you may see that a lot of them have a similar coat on. and trying to emulate what they might have looked like a little bit later on when they tried to get something that looked a little bit more uniform. But most of them wear clothing just like this. So it looks very, very, very different. Each man looks different.
And the musket, which some people don't even call a rifle. Tell us a little.
Well, this musket here, I brought, actually is from the Revolutionary War. This belongs to the Minutemen Company. And it's not really rifled. They never rifled the inside of the bore here on the musket. So when the ball came out, it came out like that, it didn't come straight out. So you never knew where the ball was going to fall. This one here was also used by the British soldiers, or what we call the regulars. It's called the Brown Vest. This one here is the date on it is 1877. I'm not sure exactly where it came from. The Minutemen Company had it given to them quite a few years back, but it was used during the Revolutionary War. We can tell by the age of this particular musket.
But the colonials wouldn't have had many brown vests. The British had them, but now our people who stood on the green that morning, what would they have had by way of a musket?
They might have had an earlier model, because what the British Army would do to give to the militia units, they would supply them with the weapons that became out of date. So when the British adopted this one, they would have given the old model to the militia.
During the French and Indian War,
yeah,
maybe?
Exactly. Or they would have brought their own Fowler, it was called, their shotgun that they would have used, looked a lot like this, but it would have been used to hunt birds. You could put ball in it in addition to buckshot or shot. So a lot of them would have brought what they had with their home that they used for hunting, particularly birds, a Fowler. Usually was a little bit longer than this, weighed a little bit less, and certainly the weapons weren't uniform therefore as well. Some of them might have had a French musket, taken
also from the French and Indian.
From the French and Indian Wars, exactly. Yeah.
Now, tell me about the Lexington Company. When was it formed? You mentioned the Centennial and Ulysses Grant's visit.
Well, it's been around since 1773. Now, at various times, it's been active or inactive. They
never formally disbanded.
Never formally disbanded. They did come together in great numbers for Grant's visit during the Centennial in 1875. After 1875, they kind of fell apart again. And in 1909, they, not only people from Lexington, but even some of the surrounding towns united and revitalized the group with, I believe, about 140 members were got involved when it first, what we call incorporated back in those days. My grandfather was one of those people back in 1909. He belonged to the company for 60 years.
Really?
Yeah, and when they had, after he did 50 parades in a row, they had a big party for him at the old Belfry Club on Muzzy Street, which is no longer there.
Yeah, right.
Big party for him there. And then, of course, my Uncle belonged, and I'm a third generation Minutemen, and they were on in Lexington, you have, by the Buckman Tavern, you have the Lexington Memorial. And my grandfather was the center person in that memorial.
Really?
And my uncle was laying at his feet. Because my uncle was a young person at that time, even though they used other people's heads, they used his body and all the rest of the members that are shown on that particular statue. Yeah. So the Lexington Minutemen, as you see us today, have been incorporated and around straight for 100 years. We've been doing the parade, except for this past year, I think it was maybe the first time it got canceled.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, right through World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, every year they've always had a parade in Lexington, and the Lexington Minutemen have always been there.
Do you have any idea of what restarted it in 1909?
I believe they had, many people in the town had a lot of interest. They did want to, I think they were working up to the 150th anniversary.
Yeah, okay, that makes
It's
sense.
1925, but it still
quite
takes
a
a while
ways,
to,
right.
you have to plan out quite a bit.
Yeah.
And there was an awful lot of interest. There's more active members, I think, at that particular time than there are, you know, than there are today.
Really?
They were, Taft used to come here during the summer and spend his time up in Beverly, Mass. I believe that they called that the Summer White House. And the Lexington Minutemen used to be his color guard. They used to go up there.
Oh, is that right?
President Taft, yeah.
Yeah. So, and they.
He was down the Cape, wasn't he?
Beverly.
Yeah, I think he also had a place
Down the Cape too, yeah. I know they used to go to what they call the Beverly, the Summer White House in Beverly, Mass. And the Lexington Minutemen have recently been to inaugurals of Eisenhower and Kennedy and Clinton.
Oh boy, that was cold. Oh my goodness. That was great.
So we do a lot of ceremonial stuff.
Well, I was going to say, what do you actually do besides keep the uniforms clean and wear them?
I'll let Bill.
We have, I'd say, three different aspects of what our mission is, I suppose. We have an educational aspect. We go around to schools, with scout organizations and so forth, talking to them about history and about the Revolutionary War and so forth. We have a ceremonial, which is involved with the uniform parades and various inaugurations. We go over to Bedford, through Hanscom, oftentimes for welcoming troops home, things like that. And then the third is the reenactment component of that. And the reenactment not only on the Common of the 19th of April, which is the highlight of our year, and everything is directed towards that. And of course, this year was the tremendous disappointment of, for the first time, not being able to hold that. But we also take part in celebrations and reenactments of the various engagements during the Revolutionary War. And starting in Battle Road 2000, we celebrated the 225th anniversary of all the Revolutionary War battles, all the way up through the surrender at Yorktown, which just took place this past year.
And we were all at Yorktown.
We were all at Yorktown.
We had about,
exactly.
what do we have, about 40, 45 people?
Yeah,
Very,
it was a
very
tremendous,
vivid.
wonderful, yeah. It was a great,
It was
very
wonderful.
emotional ceremony with the British surrender and so forth. It was
Thomas
incredible.
Jefferson came to talk to us.
He did.
It was excellent.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So those are the three aspects of it. There's the reenactment.
Now, the reenactment in Lexington
education.
is the only one that actually happens on the field that originally happened on it. So people in Lexington really have an insight into it more than other people throughout the other communities where there have been battles. And the Lexington Minutemen portray, they were the only unit in all the Revolutionary War units that we each have a character which we portray. So when we're on the battlefield on April 19th, we are actually portraying a person that was alive and on
And on the field.
that day.
Right.
And this is the only unit that does that in all of the United States. So it's really kind of I think a treat for those that come to see it, and also it makes it much more interesting for us because we are acting out a certain individual that particular morning. So April 19th is really kind of special to all of us that portray somebody.
It's unique. No other
Nobody else
who
does
that.
Yeah.
And actually, on that sacred ground, that spot right there in the middle of Lexington, people drive by every day without really beginning to recollect that what happened in that very spot.
Yeah. Ebenezer Parker, Corporal Ebenezer Parker is the person who I portray. It's very appropriate because he was 26.
Yes,
I don't know how I ever got that far, but anyway, and I went out to Princeton and saw the house he lived in when he left town, and saw his silhouette and his grave,
Wow.
and it was quite exciting. Met the people who live in the house now.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Now, Billy, you said your grandfather was in the company. Only people who had relatives actually there can join?
Anybody that has an interest in history can join the Lexington.
Anybody?
Yeah, the Lexington
People who
Minutemen.
don't live in Lexington?
People that don't live in Lexington, most of the majority of the members do not live in Lexington.
But I mean, the original Minutemen were all Yankees. They were all English stock or Scottish stock, with one exception we should talk about. So you have to be a Yankee to.
No, absolutely not. If you look at our company, you can see a variety of individuals, and we want people who are interested in history. We're very actively seeking members. We would love to keep the company going as strong as possible. We want to get as many members into the company as we can, many new members. Anyone who has an interest in history, who would like to take part in the activities that we do with education, with regard to reenactment and the ceremonial, we welcome them. They can come to our website at LexingtonMinutemen.com and indicate their interest, or if there are any of the events that we take part in, come and talk to one of us. We'd love to get people involved. So, particularly, we'd love to get people from Lexington more involved, but our membership is quite varied from down to Southborough and up into northern New Hampshire and so forth, that people come and join the company. So please, if anybody's interested, do come to the website, LexingtonMinutemen.com. We'd love to have you come to one of the meetings and see how you like it.
And meetings are?
The meetings are the third Thursday of every month, and they're held at St. Bridget's Church in the basement of the church itself. And anybody is welcome to.
So somebody could just show up.
Well, we'd love to talk to them first. We need to talk to them first,
Yeah.
to acquaint them with what the company is about and so forth. And Billy is actually the recruiting officer. As the first lieutenant and executive officer, he is the recruiting officer of the company. And it would be through Bill that they would be introduced to the company, so that when they come onto the website and indicate their interest, send an email and so forth, it would come to Bill, and then he would contact them.
Right. We're looking for people that are interested in being active members, but we would like people from Lexington. We think that people from Lexington probably don't know that much about the company, but we do a lot of things other than just the parade, as Bill has already mentioned, that we do a lot of living history type things, and we do conventions and what have you. So we are quite active. So we would like people that would be active with the company.
It does require a commitment. It requires a commitment of time and even some expense to get the various uniforms and clothing and musket and so forth. So we want somebody who's deeply interested in history and becoming involved in really interpreting and making history live. Billy talked about living history. That's what we're really interested in, is transmitting our enthusiasm and sharing our enthusiasm with others. The love of history, the love and the respect for those who've gone on before, and in our case, particularly those who fought on Lexington Common. Bill has an ancestor who got quite close to Lexington Common, in fact, was captured by the regulars and marched up to the Common and then released just before the engagement. My ancestor was on the Common and just off the Common and fired back at the regulars and so forth. But that's just us, the two of us. There aren't that many of us.
But that's unusual.
It is unusual. There aren't that many in the company who share that background. But everyone in the company shares our commitment to honoring those individuals who are here and sharing the love of history. We have every meeting, we usually have a speaker who comes and talks about the history of the time. We had wonderful speakers all this year, and it's a group of individuals getting together who share the love of history and share the respect for the past, and a comradeship that they have within the company.
But it's pretty unusual, as I think about the company, for people to have had ancestors who were actually involved. I mean, that's
It's not
pretty rare.
a lot. I mean, and usually if you have one ancestor, you find out that you have a lot of ancestors that are probably.
Well, true.
If we look back far enough, Billy and I are related probably because
Yeah, right.
everybody
Right.
married and so forth at that time in the various communities where both our ancestors came from Woburn, actually.
Yeah. Well, I had quite a few in Lexington, but
Yeah, that's right, same.
Yeah.
Connecticut mostly. I think we ought to mention, I said that the bulk of the people in the actual company were British or Scottish, in fact they all were British or Scottish stock, with the exception of one who was a slave, Prince Estabrook, and Charlie Price of Lexington
Absolutely.
portrays Prince Estabrook, and Prince Estabrook was the first African American to be wounded in the American Revolution on the Green. Went on to fight in the Continental Army, a number of engagements.
Absolutely, so that, you know, the being a Yankee is not a requirement
Yeah,
to
right.
joining our company.
But through the research that Charlie Price has done on Prince Estabrook,
Right.
and because of the interest in that,
Right.
we've learned a lot about Prince Estabrook and
Right.
Shows and cartoons and what have you
Right.
about Prince Estabrook, and books, and so it's so one can make a difference if they join the company and
Yeah.
get involved with the character
Yeah.
or one of the people that they're portraying on the
And the captain is,
Carlo
Carlo Bertazzoni,
okay, and
a
He's
good
got a
Yankee name.
yes, I was gonna say,
But you see, and that's just the thing, if you look down the membership of the company, you'll find,
before him was Henry Lou.
right, who was.
Henry
from
Luna, that was the
Chinese
sort of
extraction.
problem.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that, yeah, every faith and every creed and every color and so forth,
Right.
welcome to the company, we're inclusive, we're definitely not
And how
exclusive.
do I, well, of course, I am a member, but if I wanted to be, I'd call you, do I?
You could call me, or you could
And where do I call you?
you could call me. I can give you my number 781-326-6722. That would be my telephone that you call me at, or you can get me on at the LexingtonMinutemen.com and through the company's website too, also.
Okay, either way.
Either way.
Good. Well, I've had a lot of fun with it, and I think that's been the experience of everybody who's participated. So,
It's a great company, it's a great group of individuals, and we'd love to have you join, so please, come on
Well,
out.
you'll find this yourself. I mean, it's been 3 generations in my family. You have 2 generations right now, and you find out that
that's true.
it becomes, and there's many more.
Family thing.
Yeah, it
Right,
becomes
yeah.
a family thing, and
And the families, just one final word, talking about it being a family thing for many families. My daughter-in-law, my daughter, my grandchildren, out on the green in the morning, portraying
special.
past people, yeah. So it's great fun. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dan.
So we've been talking with some representatives, some members of the oldest military organization here in Lexington, the Lexington Minutemen, as you heard them say, officially going back to December 1773. We have a very special guest here to tell us about current organizations. Pat, why don't you introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about what you've been doing in town and with military organizations and affairs.
All right, thank you. I'm Winston E. Flynn, and everybody calls me Pat. And when I was in the military, I retired, and my wife and I came back to Lexington 38 years ago, because we loved the place. And after I left MIT, I decided I was just going to relax, but I didn't. Unfortunately, I became wrapped up with the military people in Lexington. And just to give you a quick rundown on it, I started out with the Veterans Administrations in Boston, and then I ended up being the Veterans Officer for the town of Lexington. I also would become the committee chief for the Town Celebration Committee, which is basically a military unit in town. And then I would work with the VFW in town. I worked briefly with the American Legion in town. And generally, that's what I've been doing ever since. And I really, really like it.
Well, you do it very well. You obviously like it. Pat is, of course, a key figure, a central figure, a much loved figure in town, and all those years, especially as chairman of the Town Celebrations Committee. Now, when I moved here, which was 1949, I remember the American Legion, the VFW, and the AMVETS. I think there were 3 veterans organizations, and the AMVETS were World War II people, right?
Right.
And the Legion was the oldest.
Right.
And I think it was the Stanley Hill Post of the American Legion. And I remember it as being pretty active and quite a force in town affairs in those days. More than the VFW, I think.
I would agree with you, because when I was with the Town Celebration Committee, when I first came back, and that was back in the 70s, we had contact with the American Legion. I generally had contact with Neil Crewman, and Neil was a tremendous source of information for us. And gradually, as time went on, he became about the only person we could talk to. And then when he died, to my knowledge, there's nobody else around that represents the American Legion. I say that with tongue-in-cheek. I really don't know, but he was the only one we talked to. Now the VFW, they are still organized in town, but they're small. And their numbers are going wide aboard because of World War II people. Unfortunately, the young soldiers coming out of the Army, Navy, Air Force are not joining.
They're not joining the VFW. Do the AMVETS exist anymore?
The same way. The younger people are not joining it simply because they got other activities and new organizations. But the VFW in Lexington is still going. The good thing about these people, we had the Patriots Day Parade, and they open their doors up and give us a feast following the parade. And everybody's welcome to join them.
Where the VFW has an actual facility?
Yes, they do. It's down there where the just to the right side of the road, next to the school building, the school administration building. And they're hidden in the woods there a little bit, so you can't find them. But they're right there by
Fletcher Avenue.
You're right.
Yeah, and right across in the parking lot in there.
That's right.
It's behind that food place that used to be.
It used to be.
Is that Dunkin' Donuts?
It used to be a Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know what it is now, but they're open quite a bit, and they keep their doors open for you. And the benches are still going in there, but they don't join. And actually, the VFW is a great place for the people from the post office to go and have their lunch.
Really?
Oh, yes.
No kidding, it's open at lunchtime.
Yeah, they go in and have their lunch, and and
It's a nice facility.
It is, it's a nice place, and people in the post office like it.
Yeah.
And the veterans like to have them there.
Now, how many members do you suppose VFW has now?
A big and educated guess, I'd say maybe around 35 to 40.
Uh-huh.
In the heydays, when we first came back home, they'd be running around 100.
Yeah,
So you can see, time takes them away.
yeah, and that's many people join. Now, what do they do? Do you know, Pat? They participate in the Patriots Day Parade.
Oh, they participated hardly, very much. The VFW does two things. One, they support all our parades. And second, on Veterans Day, they put out the flags on the Veterans Memorial, Veterans graves in town.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes them about 24 hours to put all those flags up.
Uh-huh.
And those flags are coordinated by, obviously, by the town cemetery people.
Uh-huh.
And they order them and they put them out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a heck of a job.
Yeah.
And if I may make a pitch for it, they need help on this particular day to get them out because, again, the people they can get out are getting up in age and it wears on them.
Mm-hmm.
So they can get any help they can get them, they would appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Who would I call if I wanted to join the VFW or if I wanted to help out on a project?
The name of the president right at the moment skips my mind, but you call it the VFW itself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that telephone number, but if you want to join, you just call their office up. It's in the telephone book, and they'll be most happy to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the person that's running it now has been running it for a number of years. He's a lawyer himself, and he's used to be in the 1st Army Division.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a salty old cuss, but he's a nice person to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll help you out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So why don't we do this? Why don't we get that name and phone number, and then we'll put it in at the end of the program.
I'll
so
get it
that
to you. Right.
Yeah, so that people know where to call.
I would urge the young people that are listening to this particular program, it's a place where you can really go there and feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
These people have been through the mill themselves, they've been in combat, they know what you're feeling, they want to help you. And unfortunately, when I was the veteran service officer in town, I came across an awful lot of these young people coming to my office, and they need help.
Mm-hmm.
And
people from Iraq, from the Gulf War, from Afghanistan.
These people need a lot of help.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not asking for money or anything, they're just asking for comradeship.
Mm-hmm.
And they need it.
Mm-hmm.
The other place that they need a lot of help is the Veteran Service Hospital, up in Bedford.
Mm-hmm.
And these two facilities up there, they need a lot of help. And if you watch the papers, you watch these politicians, every time you turn around they want to close the place down.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got a lot of veterans up there, you cannot just move them around.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a piece of a chess that you can say you move them here or move them there. Once you move a veteran someplace, say from Bedford to another location, you're disrupting the entire family.
Yeah.
And you're disrupting their care. Because these veterans are sick, you sit there, you look at them, and you talk to them, they're just normal.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly they can just fly off the handle, and you just got to be ready for it. And now the VFW, once a year, they go up to the Veterans Hospital, and they take about 25 of those people down to their facility and give them a big dinner. That's once a year. Now when they take these veterans out of the hospital, they have to have an attendant that goes with each one of them. They cannot go by themselves. So it's a tremendous burden on the people that are helping these veterans. And anybody that wants to volunteer should go up to the Veterans Hospital and contact them.
Mm-hmm.
And they need that help. You can go through the Veterans organization in Lexington and do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll help you.
Now, where's the veteran service? Where would I find that office? Where would I find that person?
Okay, the Veteran Service Officer, which I was part of, each town has one. And I work for Mr. Kelly. And Mr. Kelly was a Congressional Medal of Honor in Vietnam. And he's the Chief Administrator in Boston. Now each town, each city in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has one of us in it. Any veterans, any family that needs help can go to that particular town and contact the Veterans Officer and they'll help you out. Now, for example, if a veteran needs money, say for oil, heat, the town of Lexington has a heating program. The Veterans Office also has a heating program to help these people out. I just say that because it goes all over the state. If they need money, what we do there, I make out paperwork for them. And the paperwork is authenticated by me. I should say I'm retired from that now, but my predecessor's doing that. It's signed by him, we send it into Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Boston approves it, it comes back. The town of Lexington, say $200 is going to a family. The town will pay that to them.
Mm-hmm.
They'll send them a check once a month.
Mm-hmm.
After they send them the check at the end of the month, which I will do, then they got some more paperwork, nothing but paperwork here. I make up more paperwork, I send it back to Boston for reimbursement. The state of Massachusetts will reimburse the town of Lexington 75% of what they pay out.
I see.
So,
Okay.
so they're not paying it all out.
Mm-hmm.
And when I took over from my 2000,
Was that Steve Moran who was doing it?
Steve Barrett used to do it.
Right.
He's retired. But I should qualify something right here. The Veterans Administration in Boston does not want a non-veteran doing this.
Oh, really?
No. They want a veteran doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, a veteran can talk to a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
A person that has never been in the military has a hard time talking to a veteran. And the veteran will not open up to him,
Mm-hmm.
as a rule.
Mm-hmm.
Now Steve Moran did a fantastic job in what he was doing. And he asked me to take over from him, which I did. And it was almost like night and day, because once I started talking to a veteran, you know, what you do, you try to find a thread that you can talk to him on.
Yeah.
And if he was in the Army, and I was in the Army, it was easy. If he was in the Navy, it was something else.
Yeah,
If
well,
the Air Force is something else. You find that thread, and you don't even talk about what he's in there for. Just simply talk to him about something that he's maybe interested in, something he did in the military.
mm-hmm.
Then he opens up. And then you can start talking to him. For an example, I had a young man in there, about 28 years old, from Iraq. He was bipolar, and I don't know if you are familiar with these people with bipolar, but he would sit there and he would talk to you, and he would agree to you. And he'd walk out the door, and he has forgotten what you had talked about. And I was trying to get him a place in Lexington to live. I had it all set up, and he walked out. He was supposed to go to this place, and I called the next day, and they knew nothing about it. I contacted him, he came back, and we went through it 3 times. And you have to be very patient with these people, and that was my job. And well, some of it was kind of sad, but it had to be done.
Yeah, now who succeeded you, and where does that person actually sit? How do I?
Okay, the guy, Mr. Miller, took my place. And
What's his name?
Miller. M-I-L-L-E-R, right.
Okay.
And he took my place. He meets with these people on Wednesday in Senior Center.
On Wednesday at the Senior Center.
In the afternoon.
Okay.
And if any veteran is listening to this and needs help, he can go there and contact him.
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of criticized a little bit because, but the way I did it my way. Well, what are you going to do at all? I give him my telephone number out to the secretary at the Senior Center.
Mm-hmm.
If a veteran needed help, call me. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what time it was or what day it was. And I would get calls on Sunday night. I'd get calls on during the daytime and when I was maybe eating dinner, but that didn't bother me. But the administration preferred you didn't do that. Not Lexington, Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Set it up and stay with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Set time. And
So he's in town hall, or he's only at the Senior
he's
Center?
in the Senior Center.
Yeah, okay. On, in the old Mussey Junior High building on Mass Ave.
On Mass Avenue.
How many veterans do you suppose there are in Lexington?
I had a roster that was printed out by the state of Massachusetts for the veterans that were living in Lexington. I still got that roster. On that particular roster, I had 3,100 people.
3,100?
That's right. And it's way down now. It's gone down. But you know, these are veterans from World War II and all the other ones here who've been through Vietnam, Korea, and so forth. But that's way down now. And
That's 10% of the population, a little
oh
more.
yes. And but most of these were World War II.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they came back. There's a street here, like I think it's called Yankee something, and they built a lot of new homes up there. And every one of them were veterans from World War II. It's kind of interesting. The people that gave me the most trouble were the people from World War II. And I was a World War II veteran myself. And they gave me the biggest trouble. And you want to know why?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. The people in World War II were very stubborn people. They were very independent. They say, leave me alone, let me take care of myself. I don't want your help or anything else. And they would ask for help when the help was really needed and made it difficult for somebody to help them. They were a very independent group of people. And you had to be very proud of them. They didn't want you to help them. They wanted to do it themselves. And they did it. And as you get further into life, the younger people come in, and some of them, not all of them, they want more.
Yeah.
They don't want to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
But the people from World War II are a very stubborn group of people.
Yeah.
And so when they do need help, they really need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Now, how many, do you have any notion of how many Lexington people have been or are in Iraq, Afghanistan?
no, I can't tell you, but the ones I have from Lexington are coming back. Most of them are independent, and they've been taking care of themselves very nicely. The
Yeah.
numbers I don't have.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult because unless they come in and see you, you don't know they're back. Now,
Yeah,
the
right.
Boston office will send you a notice when they're discharged, and they'll send you a notice to the veterans officer here. He knows they're in town. And I used to have a veterans breakfast at the air base, and I had it for a number of years, and we tried to get these young people in, and they wouldn't come.
Yeah,
but the veterans would come.
yeah, yeah.
And for the veterans breakfast, I would get between 60 and 75 people. I made a mistake. The first breakfast I had was just for the men only. And when I got home and it was all done and wrapped up and all paid for, my wife says, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "These guys are married, they should bring their wives." I said, "Oh my God, I made a faux pas." So my next breakfast, I invited the wives and they started coming.
Yeah,
And it really made it an enjoyable breakfast.
yeah.
And I had one veteran come in there, and I found out it was back in 80s. He came in there and he was about, I think he said he was 82 or something like that. He called me up, he said, "Can I bring my wife?" I said, "Sure, you can bring your wife, why not?" So he brought her. She was 38 years old.
Oh, really?
So he took a beating at the breakfast.
I bet he
Everybody was
did.
kidding him.
I bet he did.
Yeah, and I had another veteran come in. These are stories that are kind of interesting. During the war, he was in Europe. He killed 2 Germans. Well, by the time the 8th breakfast came around, he was up in the 20s. And but what they do, they tell these little lies to each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody pays any attention to it. They all have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And,
But one point you made, and I think it's important that people don't lose track of it, that the post-World War II veterans, they don't really have any organization to join. They don't join the VFW. Maybe they go and they say, well, gee, this is a bunch of old guys. So there isn't any place for these younger people to go get together.
Well, when you take the American Legion, when they came out of World War I, they're strong. I mean, they are still strong, and people would join them. After they came out of World War II, they joined them.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's right.
now they're coming out of Korea, Vietnam, and Iraq, and they're not joining them.
No.
The younger people, I don't say they go into any other organization, they just seem to be independent.
Yeah.
And they get their jobs to go back to work, get married, buy a house and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And but the ones that we're receiving in the Veterans Office are generally not married, not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the younger ones.
Yeah.
But most of them are single. Now, I get a lot of families coming in that maybe have Alzheimer's or something like this. And it's not the person that has it that's coming in. It's the family that the person is staying with.
Yeah.
And for the people that are listening to this particular program, if they happen to have this, what they should do is contact the unit up in Bedford Hospital, Memorial Hospital. They got a Alzheimer's unit up there. I talked to the lady up there that runs it, and she told me one day, she said, "Pat," she says, "for God's sake," she said, "don't talk to these people. You don't know the questions to ask, you don't know how to ask them." And it was information that I found very interesting, because they can.
Mm-hmm.
The average person can't talk to them, but they can.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to contact them immediately.
Yeah, I see.
So what we do is, when the families come in, we tell them there's a unit up there in the Bedford Hospital, that the telephone number's in the book, you can just call them up. And if you need that number, I'll give that number to you. And so they get that number and call them.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'll put it in the program.
Good. All right, well, that's very helpful, and I hope that people who are listening will make note of this and take advantage of it.
Oh, I noticed you had the Minutemen here, and one of my proudest moments was when they elected to have me be an honorary member of the
Yes,
company.
I know.
And, I love that, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to them.
Yeah, I remember that very well. And
I remember you and I used to ride the bus a lot, didn't we?
we did.
I think for the audience, I learned more about Lexington just riding that bus from MIT back to Lexington with you than I did
Yeah,
any other way I could have
yeah,
found out.
yeah.
I really enjoyed
Those
it.
were good days.
Oh, they were good days.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for coming by.
Well,
Pat.
thank you for inviting me.
And those people in town who are veterans, they have a great defender and supporter in Pat Flynn over a long period of time.
Well,
Thanks.
I'd like to add one thing, if they need help, call me.
Good,
Even though I'm not working it, I'll still help them.
good. Okay,